What did you expect? Welcome, Sonny. Make yourself at home. Marry my daughter. You've got to remember, these are just simple farmers. They're people of the land, the common clay of the New West. You know, morons. I'm Chris Bivey.
And I'm Eddie Webb.
And today we're here to talk about the classic that some people say could not be made today, but maybe it could be made, Blazing Saddles. As I've tortured Eddie so much of late with my singing, I resisted the urge to start off because I have my quote. I was just going to jump into the Blazing Saddles theme song and sing it. But I was like, Eddie's heard me sing enough, and I've tortured even the listeners enough with my singing. Although this one is hard for me not to sing, as I am a Frankie Lane fan, and to sing Frankie Lane was pretty difficult not to do.
You know what's amazing about this film at this point in our genreless run, though? It's one I've seen before. You finally reached a film that I have previously seen.
Do you want to know something? You want to know a funny secret, though?
What?
I almost actively didn't put it on the list because I know that you'd seen it. But I was like, no, I'm making one of like good movies for Eddie. I'm just not gonna like be an asshole, like make sure he hasn't seen movies. And what was I gonna replace it with? I think I was gonna replace it with something really obscure, but that I would probably not want to talk about either. El Topo, Eddie, is a masterpiece. John Lennon even told us it was a masterpiece.
Yeah, but he's dead. Look what happened to him. So,
wow, there is no love for the Beatles on this podcast today.
But no, I'm actually glad we did cover this again because so my wife is a huge Mel Brooks fan, right? Like I actually didn't watch a ton of Mel Brooks until I started dating her, and so since then she really gave me appreciation for Mel Brooks. And every time I watch some of his earlier works, it's like it's uncomfortable in different ways, right? So that's which something I'm sure we'll talk about this time around. But specifically now, I get some more of the Western specific satire. So watching this, I was like, I was getting new jokes, and mostly visual gags, because I hadn't watched a ton of Westerns, and so I watched this like, oh, now I'm seeing that this is not just. It was a bit like Spaceballs, because like I knew Star Wars, and that is a very specific satire of Star Wars. Now I'm able to get similar jokes on this one on that level.
I warn you in advance. If we ever cover Spaceballs, I am going to sing the Spaceballs theme.
Fair enough.
Or the "We ain't found shit" line, but probably Spaceballs.
You mean Tuvok saying "we ain't found shit"?
What?
Tim Russ in a starring role.
Starring. Oh god! All right,
certainly the most quoted role.
Do you know there's currently like a documentary of his? I think on HBO.
No, I didn't.
If y'all haven't seen it, you should definitely go watch it. It is really good. It talks about like his career, like the whole like arc of his career. It's of course it's him like being interviewed and everything else. So it's a very positive spin on his career. But it is really good, and it talks about and highlights how much he loved Anne Bancroft and how like she was a defining force in his life. But it talks about the work too.
I can totally see that. And man, Mel Brooks is one of those comic creators that, or sorry, I just say, I don't want to say comedic, it's not quite his work, but comic creator sounds like he makes comics. That's not what I'm saying either. Comedy creators, I guess, who's every time you think his work is out of fashion, the world it becomes worse and it comes in fashion again.
It's just like the old saying, you can always punch a Nazi. There are some things that are universal and that won't seem to die.
Yes. Now, that's not to say this movie is 100% great. There's lots of things where it's like, oof, that aged extremely badly. It's like sometimes it's uncomfortable for bad reasons. Sometimes it's uncomfortable for good reasons. And it seems like every time I watch it, those all change a little bit because I'm watching it at different times in my life and different times in the world. But it's wild. Like my wife and I went to go see a stage production of The Producers, and which he was involved with on a minor level because he is like 90 now. So, and it was in the UK, but I think he was involved in like, I think he was consultant on it or something, and maybe wrote one of the songs. Um, but like again, like it was super funny, um, because he just goes to bat against the Nazis in such a visceral way.
No, I oh you all really should watch that documentary because it goes into like the struggle he went through to have the producers created and everything else he
Mhm.
did for it. It is
Sure, yeah,
fascinating.
yeah,
It
I can
it's on
believe
the
it.
level of like, all right, let me preface it. It's on the level of enjoyment of watching that one about Mel Brooks as it was about watching the one they did about Billy Joel, the one they did about Pee Wee Herman. So
Okay.
they're becoming the Ken Burns channel in a sense.
I did
That's a
see
documentary joke, by the way, folks.
it's funny, like, I did see, a documentary on Gene Wilder, and
Yeah.
so I've seen Wilder, sorry, and I think, a chunk of that interview with him was in the Gene Wilder documentary because he talks a lot about how Mel talks a lot about how the producers really clicked when he saw his performance on, in auditions. Um,
But all right, we're not here to talk about just them in general. We're here to talk about one of the greatest comedy movies ever made, according to some people.
Muppet Christmas Carol, we already covered that.
That's not a comedy movie, Eddie. That is a gripping Muppet-based drama.
To be fair, it is weirdly dramatic. We can talk about it at the time.
Yeah, a lot because it has Michael Caine, and if Michael Caine's in it, it's got to be more dramatic.
Just love the fact he played it so fucking straight. It's amazing.
Is someone going to talk to me about Alfie? Because I think Alfie is technically kind of a comedy with Michael Caine, but I digress into
True.
movie
True.
trivia at this point. All right, Mel Brooks is the director of this.
Right.
Do you know this is originally supposed to be a film called Tex X?
That sounds terrible.
Because it was by, I think Bergman was a writer, and it was a play on Malcolm X's name, still about a black sheriff in the Old West.
That kind of summarizes some of my feelings about this film.
So it was like his idea, and supposedly they had Alan Arkin was going to direct it, and James Earl Jones was going to be the sheriff in the movie.
Look, I love James Earl Jones, but that would have been, I think, a really bad choice.
What? It wasn't going to be a comedy though. The thing is, it was supposed to be like
Oh,
more
okay.
of
I didn't know that part.
like a western.
Oh, that is different. I thought it was still going to be a comedy.
Oh no! Oh god! I love James Earl Jones, but I don't think comedy was his strong suit. I could be wrong if someone wants to bring something out, but
Well, no, I mean, like, he okay, so he can be funny, but it is very much in the sense of if he is the straight man, right?
yeah.
For example, super obscure. He plays the voice of God in a series of old video games. Text something. It's about a private eye on Mars in the future, and it's a comedy game. But he plays the voice of God, and occasionally people talk to him, and God is like just not understanding what the shenanigans are all about. So like James Earl Jones has comedic chops, but if he's playing straight man to everybody else's buffoonery, and I feel like this movie doesn't work unless you have Black Bart completely in on the buffoonery.
So, all right, I think I would say, in my opinion, he has comedic timing, but is not a comedic actor.
Right. Yes. Exactly.
Okay, because now don't get me wrong, I would have think it'd been fascinating to watch James Earl Jones in like a serious western movie as like the sheriff,
No,
having
totally.
gunfights and everything. I would watch that movie hands down. Like, oh,
I'd watch a TV series. That'd be amazing.
Which part of me wonders if it was someone inspired by Buck and the Preacher then, but that's a thought process I didn't have time to really look into. So totally different movie. Anyway, that fell apart. And then
Right.
Mel Brooks learned about it, and so Mel Brooks like bought the rights, and his entire description was it was going to be a hip like 1974 film that happened in 1874 in the Old West.
Right. And certainly, again, because we've also watched some blaxploitation since last time I watched this film, I also see some of that in here as well. Um, but certainly, so I was gonna say this for later, but I think maybe talk about it a little bit now. Um, this movie has the same problems I now have after watching Django with you, in a sense of when there's a white director involved, they feel like they have free license to do and say certain things on screen to an uncomfortable level that does not seem sustainable. And that
So
happens in the movie as well, a lot.
it's funny that you mentioned that, because that is something I think people have mentioned to Mel Brooks. Like, I think the studio mentioned to him. And so I can't speak to the validity of it or whether or not it's because they were working for him. But supposedly Richard Pryor and Cleavon Little gave people like the general, it's okay, it's a movie, we don't care that you're using it. And Richard Pryor was in the writer's room. And
Okay.
supposedly all that together did that. So,
Okay.
and Mel Brooks has gone on record saying like Richard Pryor and Cleavon Little said it was okay if we did it. So that's why we did it and everything else. That goes into the concept though of you're in 74, the power dynamics of like a white successful director hiring you to work for them on their film and everything else. So
Right. And again, I like Mel Brooks a lot. I really enjoy his work. But he's also from the same school of like Stan Lee, of whatever lie gets me in the door, you know?
yeah.
So I take a lot of that stuff with a grain of salt.
And funny that you mentioned that, because one of the originally the lead was supposed to have been Richard Pryor.
Okay.
And for a long time, the rumor had been that the studio didn't want Richard Pryor to do it because of like drug use and he was unreliable and so forth and so on.
Right.
I want to say in 2010, 2012, it potentially came out that the reason Richard Pryor wasn't the lead in the film is because Mel Brooks changed his mind. He didn't want Richard Pryor to overshadow him for the film and everything else.
Mm.
I
Right.
don't
Because this
know
was
if it's true,
this was right
but that's
before. Well, was this before or during when Wilder and Pryor were in a lot of very successful films?
this is before.
Okay.
Like if they had done this together, this would have been their first one together.
Okay. Okay.
But Richard Pryor was like an on fire. God, that's a horrible thing I said like that. I apologize. Richard Pryor was an amazing comedian at the time, like rising star, like knocking it out of the ballpark. And so, with that assertion, because I don't know the validity of it, because we don't go and track down actual like all the facts. We get highlights.
Right.
But supposedly that was what it's come out to be, is that Mel Brooks and want Richard Pryor to overshadow him for this film. And so he spread that rumor about the studio and everything else. Now the studio, of course, had interest in like Flip Wilson being Bart.
Right. Right.
Flip Wilson was another black comedian at the time who was okay, but his dynamic I don't think would have worked for the role that we at least see in this version of the movie.
Right. No. And I mean, I suppose I can see a version where Richard Pryor would have worked, but like honestly, I do feel like the reason why I think this movie works a bit is that Bart is played a lot like Shaft. You know, there's that kind of very specific blaxploitation confidence, charming charisma. It's like I think part of the reason is also that I'm getting it right. Cleavon Little played Bart, right?
Correct. So
Okay, let's make sure I got that right.
I don't see blaxploitation, but I am fascinated to see where you're going to go with this.
Well, I mean, in the sense of someone who, because like, Richard Pryor is a comedian, and the kind of roles he has traditionally gotten, even when he became very successful, were very much comedic roles, right? And I felt, specifically watching this, that part of why it works is that Bart has leading man energy. That's again similar to something like Shaft, where it's there's a confidence and a swagger that comes with it that Pryor would be more focused on the jokes, and Cleavon seems to be playing it more like I'm playing this as if I were the lead, because he is the lead, he's the star. Um, and so I feel like that confidence and charisma helps the character out a lot.
Okay. So, all right. For me, I don't think that's blaxploitation. I just think that is a black actor knocking out the ballpark. Because the big thing about Cleavon Little is that Cleavon Little came from like Broadway. He was actually in a musical called Pearly at the time. Pearly is a musical about like a bombastic preacher in the Jim Crow South that goes back to try to save a church. Like short version of Pearly. Go check it out. It's by Davis, I think, if I remember it. So they pulled him from that. And so he has like all that confidence and charisma based on that. Blaxploitation would be like a different Billy Wick, in my opinion.
Fair enough. Like I've not watched many of them. I only watched a couple with you so far. So like perhaps Cleopatra Jones and Shaft may not be the best representative example for me to make that assertion on. But again, both those characters are very much. For me, it's like, and so this probably isn't my expectation, but like Shaft was, let's channel all the energy of a detective show, but not ignore the fact that this character is black. Cleopatra Jones, let's pretend this character is a female James Bond, but not ignore the fact that she's black. And I felt like this is the same thing. Like let's pretend like this guy is a Western hero, but not ignore the fact that he's black. So in my head, that was to me the thread, and maybe expectation is the wrong thread to pull on.
There's a lot of other contexts for blaxploitation that this film doesn't have. But if people want to know what those are, I'd say go listen to the Patreon episode that we do about blaxploitation. Look at that. I'm promoting myself right there.
Fair enough.
This is more of taking the iconic Western character and turning them black, but then focusing on the racial element of it specifically. Because even in an interview, Mel Brooks is like saying, I want to say in 2012, 2013, I may know a lot about Blazing Saddles, just in general.
Sure, yeah.
Is that they couldn't make this film in 2010 or 2015. They were saying they can't make this film again because they couldn't use the N-word for him. And without using the N-word and racism, this film wouldn't exist and there'd be nothing to it.
Right. Now, fast forward to Sinners, right? And it's clear that you could possibly do that.
You would need a non-white director.
Correct. Right. Oh, God,
so,
man.
Nothing against Mel Brooks, but there's a lot of different racial pieces to this that he got. I'm trying to think how I want to phrase that. Much like Romero, who randomly cast a black lead in Night of the Living Dead. And it added resonance to that story because it was a black lead. Right. And got to add on the racial elements. Blazing Saddles does something similar.
And I would argue that you need someone like Mel Brooks to get this film even made this way in 74.
Yes.
Right. But now I'm imagining Ryan Coogler directing a reboot of Blazing Saddles, and I kind of want to see that.
Oh, God. Okay. The writer's room for this. One of the things that I loved about it is that so Mel Brooks worked on like the Show of Shows with Sid Caesar, which generally had like a bigger writer's room, and they'd throw ideas around each other. He took that model for Blazing Saddles. And so the writer's room had Brooks, Pryor, Bergman, and like two of the writers. And supposedly the concept was they'd go in, they'd get super caffeinated, and then if all of them laughed at a joke, it stays in the movie. If they didn't, it'd kind of get punted out of the movie. And that's kind of how they came up with the script and everything else.
It's interesting you mention that because the other thing about this movie that struck me is it did feel structurally, and to be fair, Spaceballs does as well, but not as much, a bit like one of the Monty Python films in the sense of it's joke, 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 right? And a lot of times it's just kind of skits connected together through a vague plot. But they also had a writer's room rough structure where they would all be writing on the script. So now that you say that, I think it's probably part of it because also the humor, what is being laughed about varies a lot through the film. It's not a consistent style of humor. So it also, now that you say that, it probably is a bit of a writer's room. Like this guy specialized in visual gags, this guy specialized in verbal puns, this guy specialized in character jokes. And then so those guys all get together, which makes a very good film because there's always something to laugh at, which is great for a film like this. But it certainly does mean that that's one of the only arguments toward this could be made today that I find really relevant because that style of cram-full comedic movies aren't made anymore. Like Airplane is another example. The Airplane movies.
Wow, that's I won't even tell like what we did Airplane. One of the things I found fascinating is that they talked about how Brooks even brought in the original writer of text script and made him part of the writer's room, which normally you wouldn't do because writer, you take my script or throw it away, and then you're gonna like riff on what my idea was. It wasn't good enough. Could lead to trouble, but supposedly, it worked great. Stunned by that.
That's kind of good professional. You mean I get paid twice? I get paid to option the script and throw it away, and I get paid again to write a new one? Fantastic.
Oh god, where to go? How much background stuff you want to do? Because there's a whole bunch up on the sheet, but we're just riffing now. I know I'm looking at the sheet if we want to get into it.
Well, like, uh, I don't know how much you know about this, but one of the jokes that I have come to appreciate more and more over the years is the Hedley Lamar joke,
Oof.
right? Because like at first I was like, I vaguely knew who Hedy Lamar was, and then I realized, okay, she's an actress, so okay, it's kind of an interesting, weird joke about the '50s. And then I found out who Hedy Lamar really was, and I was like, oh my god, she's amazing, right?
Yes.
And then
Do you want to
so
tell people
a
who she is? Because she's fucking amazing.
yeah, so Hedy Lamar, yes, she was a extremely popular Hollywood actress. I want to say in the '40s and '50s. Am I right about that? But she also invented the technology that we now use for cell phones. She
Yep.
invented variable frequency modulators. So that way, and it originally was designed, if I remember correctly, so that people could communicate during World War II without being eavesdropped on.
Correct. And she essentially just gave it to the government.
Right. So the reason why she got no credit for a long time is because she basically refused to patent it, so that as part of the war effort. And then a lot of people built on that technology, and it's only been fairly recently that people have resurrected this and made sure she got the proper credit for inventing this technology.
Never got paid though. Without her, you wouldn't have your cell phones. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, she's amazing. Like a lot of times, talk about like, oh, this person was really smart, or no, she was a genius. She was genuinely a genius, and just like, yeah, but I kind of want to be an actor instead.
And was patriotic enough to know that they needed it in the war effort. Like that
Right.
is.
So watching it now and watching a mediocre white guy claim stolen valor from a woman also resonates really well for me as a joke.
And so I think the lawsuit was she sued them for like $100,000 or something. And
Oh, I didn't know that. She sued them?
yes, like that is why it's a joke in the film, is that she went and she sued them about the use of like her name and everything else. And in the end, it was settled out of court for an undisclosed amount, but they kept the joke in, and that's why it's a running gag throughout the entire thing.
So okay, so I see that. So that's why every time they missay his name, he has to correct them.
And one of the
Interesting.
things Mel Brooks on record for is saying he admired her and that she never got the joke.
You know what? If I had had my hard work taken from me and given no credit for it, I'd be a little prickly about that too, you know?
Yeah. I'd be prickly as a retired actor and someone using my name for anything and making
Right,
fun of me without consulting me, I think, beforehand.
right. Which I didn't know if it was this thing specifically, but I know this trend happened a lot in the '70s, which is one of the reasons why Weird Al Yankovic has been so aggressive about making sure it gets permission of the people before it parodies their songs.
Yeah. Dr. Demento didn't do that, though, did he?
No, that's another reason why I think Al started. I know Dr. Demento was his mentor, and so I think Al was like, well, "Yes, I learned a lot from you, but also I think that's an unfair practice. I want to make sure that people respect me." But of course, with Weird Al, then he became so popular, people were asking him to parody his songs, which is a whole separate weird thing. But
But then it also gets into like the parody law, though, where there's a fine definition for the parody law that parodies don't necessarily have to have permission of the thing that they're parodying to do their parody.
right, but the problem is that because the gag is you have to say Hedy Lamar's name specifically, it's no longer parody. Um,
Yeah, but I'm talking briefly about Weird Al, though I've kind of
well,
transitioned to that
right.
discussion about those. And
Right. It came down to, as I understand it. Now, granted, some comes from the Weird Al documentary, which is intentionally and hilariously incorrect. Um, but part of the reason, as I understand it, was that when he was a struggling musician, and remember, his shtick was he played polka music, so he wasn't expected to become a huge star. Was like, I don't have the money for lawyers, so I'd rather get permission than have to worry about that expense. And then it just became a thing he always did because he became known for being that, and because he was such cool about it, people were more likely to work with him, and he wanted to keep that reputation. But originally, it just came down to I can't afford record companies will sue me into the ground.
yeah. Okay. We talked a bit about Cleveland Little and talked about like the Bart role. let's talk about Jim. Mel
Okay.
Brooks gave the script to John Wayne, like on the studio lot. He tracked him down, gave him the script. John Wayne supposedly read it and liked it. And Brooks said he wants you to be Bart. Sorry, he wants him to be Jim. And John Wayne said, I can't do that, but I'll come and I'll see your movie.
Okay.
Could you imagine John Wayne in the Gene Wilder role?
God, no. Dear God, no.
Because Brooks was obsessed with having like a wrinkled faced old dude being like Jim. Like that was his obsession. That's what he wanted. That's when Wayne said no. He went to Dan Daly, who was like a big dancer, but then he said no. And instead they got Gig Young, who was like another sort of Western actor and everything else. And Gig Young showed up, was on set for about a day, but suffered severe alcohol withdrawal.
Oh.
And essentially passed out. And so that's when he called Gene Wilder, who was already somewhat familiar with the script because he wanted Gene Wilder to be Hedley Lamarr. He was one of the people he asked to do it.
I could see that.
But Wilder was like, no, I don't want to do that. I want to be Jim. And he also asked Johnny Carson to be Hedley Lamarr. And Johnny Carson said no.
Like, I could see getting an established Western actor to play the parody of the grizzled Western hero, right?
Yeah.
I can get that logic. But one of the things that Wilder does really well is take extremely ludicrous parts and play them as if they make perfect sense. And so with Jim, I think it really helps the fact that Jim is such a parody of the gunslinger tropes that one of the visual gags that I noticed this time around was how all of his trick shots become increasingly implausible to the point where they become absolutely impossible. And he plays them as like, yeah, no, I'm totally a gunslinger. I didn't pick up a gun, but I actually shot that out of your hand, and plays it like that's totally a logical thing to happen, even though there's no possible way that could have happened, right? And I feel like an established Western actor would have tried too hard to make sense of that when Wilder's just like, no, that's the point. It can't make sense. And I have to act like it does, even though nobody else believes that. And so he's particularly good at that.
And he has the comedic timing. And the thing is, I think I'm fuzzy on this one, but I think the quote I read at the start, he added the word like morons or something to the end. And so that laugh that you get with Cleveland Little is a real laugh, and Mel Brooks kept it in. And that is like the level of humor and other things that he brings to it. Supposedly he was a very calming presence on the set from the stuff I've read. To counterbalance Mel Brooks' less than calm approach to things.
Yeah, well, so I suppose we'll talk about more when we get there, but like the director at the end of the film is a parody of Mel Brooks' actual style of direction. So he is an energetic director.
And we cannot go past without talking about Lily Von Struck. Madeline Kahn, amazing in this role.
Amazing.
Originally, she was supposed to have been in Anti-Mame, I think, with Lucille Ball, but she got fired from that. Some people say that it was Lucille Ball that fired her. Some people say that she got herself fired. But anyway, she got to do this. And during her audition, though, she had to like show Mel Brooks her legs, which she quipped about it and was quipped about it itself. It was like, so it's that kind of audition. And he's like, no, I'm a happily married man, but you're playing like a riff on Marlene Dietrich from Destiny Rides Again. So she like showed him and he's like, you're hired. Which Destiny Rides Again is a 39 film that we almost covered. But I wanted to shortened the run by like 6 movies for you.
Fair enough. Yeah, and one thing because she's been again quite a few movies, but like she has this great capacity to have all of the attributes of an extremely attractive, sexy woman, and then throw them away during her actual performance. Like she's genuinely an attractive woman, but like especially in this movie, she plays Von Strupp like just so exhausted and frustrated and tired of everyone's bullshit, and like it's a great way of going. Yes, I'm attractive, but I don't care. That I've always loved about how she, especially this era of her career.
The movie itself had a budget around like 2.6 million, and I think it made about 119 million.
Yeah, ridiculous amount of money.
Yeah, like I think it was one of the top grossing movies of the year in '74. So hands down, smashing success. Like
And isn't it considered to have been considered like of historic value or whatever?
it
But
was the Library of Congress accepted it
that
in
was it.
2006.
Right, okay.
Yeah,
Which
it's
is wild.
unbelievable. A joke that's in the film that I myself only recently found out about is the name La Petomane is a reference to like a French performer who was a professional farter. Eddie, like that's his job. He toured and he farted, and La Petomane was his stage name. And so essentially, they have like the governor is just blowing hot air.
Oh my god, that's one of the reasons why I love these kinds of films. Is like because there's just layers and layers and layers of jokes.
And the thing is, like the amount of knowledge that Mel Brooks has to have to be able to make a joke like that and slip it past the censors and the studio executives and everyone else.
Right? Yeah, because one of the because with all of the ups and downs that come with this, right? He is is a creative who's passionate about the fact that free speech is an important thing, and that he is always aggressively trying to find ways past censors and litigious parties to get a particular joke across. And again, it works both ways. Like some of those jokes, like no, you really actually shouldn't be saying that, Mel. Maybe, um, but he is for all of the modern comedians are like no one's appreciates humor anymore. And it's like I can't just make jokes. And it's like no, Mel would genuinely make fun of absolutely everyone, right? And a lot of them were in bad taste, but he would find such creative ways to get around them or walk right up to the line. And like, where's the actual line? Because I'll stand on it. That is what the line is. Um, I know that on Spaceballs, some of the jokes he just forgot, quote unquote, to show the studios and the rushes. And then made the final cut. Um, for History of the World, he showed slightly different versions of the movie to different testing audiences before he put together the film he actually wanted to make. So Mel is again very Stanley in that regard. It's like whatever gets the job done, I'll do.
And the studio did not want to make this film. Like hands down, once they got there, they didn't want to make it. And essentially, he had final say in what goes to the film because they like a list of things they want to cut. He didn't cut them, and he had like one or two showings of the film, and the film was a smashing success. When it hit the cowboy farting scene, is when like the audience broke and died laughing, and that's when the studio gave him like the full backing.
Amazing.
I can't believe that was a big thing. All right,
Farting is
my
funny.
last thing before we move into the thing proper is there was a TV series made from it too called Black Bart. Black Bart was one of the names originally for the thing. You did know this or didn't know this?
Did not know.
Oh. So the TV series had a pilot made, and it starred Louis Gossett Jr. as Bart.
Okay.
And we're never going to watch it or really discuss it again. And like one of the things is they removed the Jim character and re-envisioned it. I want to show this is how much confidence they had in the series. Is that he had a sidekick called Reb something another who was a former Confederate.
Oh God.
And so there's one episode I think that was officially made and released, and then there's a rumor that the studio continued to make them but didn't release them because then they retained the rights for any sequels that happened. That is a part I'm super murky on because I didn't have any interest in the series and knowing that.
So I don't know about this series, but I do know this weird quirk of copyright law is it is fairly common in licensing agreements and when you are adapting somebody else's intellectual property, where you have to prove after a certain number of years that you are interested in making, you have to demonstrate that something has been produced. Now, nowhere in legal language is the word sold, right? So that is why, for example, we have a really terrible Fantastic Four movie from the 90s that was never actually released because the point was not to make a film that would make money. The point was to make a film that way they could show to legal people, Yes, this fits all the qualifications of Fantastic Four film. It is therefore a Fantastic Four film we have made. We have, however, chosen not to release it, but that doesn't mean we get an extension on our rights to make the actual Fantastic Four film we actually want to make, which also never happened, but it's neither here nor there.
Which, to the extent that for people that know my love of like the 1970s Hobbit film with
Mhm.
like The Greatest Adventure, which I could sing now if prompted, was
No,
not the first animated Hobbit film, actually.
right.
There was one before it because someone else held the rights and they made like this 15-20 minute thing of clip art essentially.
Mhm.
And the people that made the Hobbit film I love had to buy the rights from them because they produced something so they could retain the rights. It's also how
Right,
we get
yeah.
so many Spider-Man movies. Spider-Man.
Yeah, and for a while, um, the reason why the reason why it would still happen, but the loosened up on this legal interpretation of it, was because you had to prove that it was demonstrably a new take on something to preserve the rights for it. So that's why we had like 3 Spider-Man reboots.
Yeah.
Because and also why it was a joke for a long time. Like, you had to keep going through the origin story to demonstrably prove this is a new take on Spider-Man, and then they're able to prove for, I believe, one of the Batman retreads that audiences were savvy enough to realize something was a reboot without necessarily having to go through the origin story again. I think it was for the Nolan Batman films. They had this, and so it's okay as long as audiences can reasonably expect to understand that this is not in the same continuity and therefore is a new take. Therefore, the rights do renew, and and the rights holdings usually about a decade. So that's why roughly every 10 years we get reboots of things.
Ridiculous. Um, that song and the burning opening as music plays over a landscape. An opening scene is workers constructing the railroad, and instantly we jump into
Instantly.
racist banter. The N word pops up at about 3 minutes and 15 seconds. And we get a pair of dueling songs between the black workers and the white racist before Bart and Charlie are sent to investigate a quicksand hazard, only to be nearly killed and left for dead by Taggart, who rescues the handcart. Bart saves himself and Charlie before taking revenge on Taggart. I'm going to pause there, actually.
One of the challenges talking about this film is going to be is to not just go and then there's this joke and then there's this joke and there's this joke. Like, there's so many of them, right? Um, but the song contest I like because it does simultaneously show Bart as a sophisticated character, um, because he knows much more sophisticated music than the white racists who think that they are better than the black workers. Um, but then also simultaneously, during all that, is also showing how a lot of white supremacists act like they're superior when in fact they're complete fucking idiots.
Yes. And so, funnily enough, the lead actor, you know what? Well, I don't know what I don't even know what we're gonna call him yet. Who knows? Maybe I'll say racist the whole time. Maybe I'll say something else. Depends on my mood.
Yeah.
But that lead actor of those guys, who I think was actually like a firefighter, I think I saw in the interviews, and Mel Brooks
Oh.
said, "I'm going to make you famous. You're going to be like the first person in film history to fart on film." um,
Wow.
said he had
That's
so many
remarkable.
problems that he didn't want to say the N word. That supposedly Clavon Little came and reassured him that it's okay if he said it because it was part of the joke and it was needed to work.
Interesting.
So in the interview I watched, like he specifically brought that up and talked about how difficult that was for him to say it. And then Clavon Little had to come and reassure him of that.
Okay,
Interview is
then that,
fascinating because I guess one quick side point is that when I
sure.
was watching it, one of the writers referred to Richard Pryor constantly as Richie, and other people use like his real like Richard whenever they talk
Yeah.
about him. So it's showing you different things right there. I'm gonna leave it at that.
Sure, right. But it is that's good context because like certainly at this point I was like, okay, Buck and the Preacher, I don't think used the word at all. Managed to go through the whole thing without using the word. And then we're like 3 minutes in, already happens. It's like, okay, look, another white director. It feels like they could throw that word around. But it does sound like, unlike Django, although for all I know, Django may also be this way, and we just didn't know about the backstory, but like this certainly, um, it sounds like more people were okay. This we need this specifically to sell this vibe, right? Um, so that's maybe they weren't using it purely for outrage, and so if they're doing it for with intent, that is actually more interesting for me to know. Whereas with Jenga, it was just so relentless that it just became. I was exhausted. It's like I just don't care. Just shut up.
So I'm gonna preface it. I understand that like from the interview stuff I saw, they said that they gave them that pass for this specific film in the 70s. To bring it back to QT was using the word even in like Pulp Fiction
Right.
that didn't have any black people in it. And throughout his entire career, and there's even interviews where saying he has an official pass or something to use the N word, which is utter bullshit. I said it.
It is. It's not like France where we have like an institute of language where you can get formal passes on things.
So anyway, though, the opening scene I love because it's showing you historical context that we haven't seen in a lot of the movies, like the fact that there were Asian workers working the railroad. A lot of Chinese people came over to work the railroad. Some of them came over willingly. Some of them were tricked by white people who needed workforce and labor to come over. And some of them could bring over their family members and everything else. And we haven't seen much that shows you that. Like even Briscoe County showed you like the Chinese workers that came over, and they were a substantial part of it. Without the marginalized people working on the railroad would not exist. And that's there on film at the start of the movie.
Yeah, and one thing that's a good point. I hadn't thought about, but you just reminded me of. This movie tells through humor a level of history that the past two films we watched had to have like a 30-second crawl to explain, you know? And so this is doing without having to use exposition, they just use the comedy of the scene to make it very clear what the history is. So that's really, really good.
Yeah. That's why I wanted to like pause for that beat and talk about how amazing that was.
Yeah.
Sometime later in Headley, Lamar, Territorial Attorney General's office, he explains construction has now has to go through Rock Ridge because of the quicksand. Knowing that the town will be worth millions, Taggart comes up with a plan for Headley to run the town folks out of town. And in his gratitude, he assigns Bart to be hanged. Eddy, the guy on horseback being hanged, it is utterly stupid, but it makes me laugh every time I see it.
It's okay. So it's so tempting to break down all the jokes, but this one in particular is definitely worth breaking down because, like, first of all, you have someone being hanged, and you have the hangman just casually talking about murder as if it's like an appointment. Like the logistics is the most annoying part of his job. Then they go to a part where the guy's he's being hanged and the horse is being hanged, right? There's a rope around the horse's neck, which is a great visual jag. And then off screen later, you hear the thump, and then you have Headley going, "It's okay, it's just a horse being hanged."
It is so stupid and so good. Like, oh.
Right, and that's one of the things about this whole movie is like there's so much dumb humor. Like the quicksand gag, which we glossed over, like is so stupid. It's so Wile E. Coyote. But because everyone is acting like it's just how things work, it's what makes this movie so great. Is because like of course westerns work this way, and it's like no, they don't. You know, the movie acts like, "Yep, don't tell you this is how westerns work." Come on.
And we get like a riff about the Dr. Gillespie killings and the land snatching. Like, let me look up land snatching. Nope, see snatch. Oh, it is like the timing's beautiful, yes. The execution, the wordplay.
Right.
Everything.
And that's all buried in a joke about how horribly aggressive and offensive American legal policy was. Right, because it's like land, see, snatch, and then boom, and then it's like, oh yeah, we have this completely legal precedent for just stealing someone's lands.
Oh, minor things, but I wanted to pause for those two beats because it sets the tone of the movie. Super funny. There was a peaceful town called Rock Ridge that never had no kind of trouble before a pack of murderers and thieves attacked the town. Not wanting to go with Reverend Johnson's suggestion to leave, the other prominent citizens named Johnson lead the other townspeople in demanding that Governor William J. Lepedimane appoint a new sheriff to protect them. Lamar persuades him to appoint Bart, a black railroad worker, who is about to be executed for assaulting Taggart. Lamar reasons a black sheriff will offend the townspeople, create chaos, and leave Rockridge at his mercy. You're right. I stole the exact riff about Rockridge because it is so beautiful. It's sung. It is so nice, and it's just
It
like
is so good.
beat, 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 beat.
And this is again, this is another joke, but like I actually somehow missed this every other time I watched it. I just got it this time. Like I got the whole joke of like everyone's called Johnson, and for a long time I thought it's a joke about inbreeding, right? It's like everyone's all related to each other and blah blah. And I realized it might also be that, but it's just a very simple joke of they're all dicks. And I'm like, oh my god, that's so good.
Oh god. It's the setting up in the building is like great. Part of the things though about doing a comedy is there are so many beats of it that we just enjoy that I don't know how much conversation there is about the comedic beats without spoiling the joke.
Right, right. But I think it's worth telling like how so many of the jokes tie into the story he's trying to tell, right? Like for example, uh Bart come oh no, he's not here. Yeah, sorry. I was about to make a joke about reference to a scene about to come out, so I'll roll that back. But even here, like Lamar joking about we'll hire a black sheriff and everyone will be so offended that they'll just give us the town, right? And it's just he's like it's such a whole big joke of like this is an elaborate, stupid plan, but also it's not entirely stupid given the historical context we're talking about here.
Correct. And so when they find Lepedimane, who is doing business like affairs of state with his secretary, he comes out and he constantly says "nay" to both of them.
Right.
Because he pulls Bart to the side, realizes he made a mistake, then comes back and he says the exact same thing. So that is a joke that it could go really wrong really easily.
Right.
And that is the line you're talking about with Mel Brooks on it.
Yeah. The reason why I think it works is that because he's talking to, he's cross-eyed, and so he therefore implies he has trouble seeing, and there's a couple comments about how he can't really see very well. So he pulls Bart aside and turns just the moment he's about to say the word, realizes who he's talking to, right? And then does the exact same thing like you say, and the fact that he stops works because it's there's no situation where he actually feels comfortable saying it, but he feels like he should, right?
Yeah.
And so it's a subtle, and it's all into how Mel plays it. It's one of those lines where it's like, to me, it feels like I could see going, this is a particularly hard one. I'll just do this one. That way, if it goes bad, it's on me, kind of thing. I could see that him making that decision. There's also a lot of bad things, like the sexualization of his secretary, whatnot. But
constantly.
Right, it's constant. But like he's counterbalancing it so much with just like the paddleball thing, right? Does a lot of work to help the scene work well because it's like, no, this man is a complete and utter idiot, right? It's like, yes, he's a sexist, he's racist, he's misogynist, he's all of these things, but also he is bad at his job. He's bad at being a human being. He's just a terrible person, and so you're laughing at him specifically.
But then you also get the fact that he realizes some of these things are bad because that's why when Headley talks about sending Bart, he instantly says we can't do it because they'll kill him.
Right.
But then you have Headley coming back saying it just needs to work for a day.
Right.
So you have that snippet of conscience, and he didn't say the word, and then you go, you know what, you're right. I could be president.
Right. And again, like a politician with aspirations of becoming president who uses women and is racist plays really well in 2026.
Yeah, played well before that too.
Right, that's the thing. It's not like this joke has aged well. It's rather this joke has never not been good.
I'm not gonna mention the sheer amount of racism, just assume that goes throughout the entire film
Sure.
because it is intentional to be there. And we're going to talk about at the end of this whether or not this movie could be made today. Sheriff Bart, decked out in his new uniform, leathers, brown suit, badge, and Gucci saddlebag, ride into town while Count Basie's band, literally flown out Count Basie's band, full orchestra, plays in the fucking desert. Into town, and the welcome parade turns deadly. Bart plays on the stupidity of the townsfolk to escape with his life, while the town prepares a burning written response to the governor. Bart settles in and befriends Jim, the Waco Kid, an alcoholic gunslinger, as the pair share life stories. Bart optimistically believes that if he establishes himself, everything will be okay, while Jim warns him against it.
Oh,
Eddie Count Basie, loved
yes.
it. I loved it the first time I saw it. I loved it the second time, and I loved it every time.
Right. Another thing that Mel Brooks does a lot in his films, because like especially for films that are ostensibly set historically, is he does not remotely care about historical accuracy. If it's in service of a good joke, he will absolutely do it. And later films play with that anachronism much more intentionally. But in this movie, again, of course, that the band is there, in the Western film. Why not? Right. And there's a lot of that, like just very explicitly modern references that the movie not only doesn't bother to explain, but actively relishes in. Yeah, no, it's a movie made in 1974. And so yeah, I love that stuff because it continually reveals the fact, the artifice, this is a movie, right? The movie never, obviously this falls apart near the end. We'll talk about that when we get there. But like, the movie's intentionally going, no, this is not a Western story. This is a story about a Western movie. And so stuff like that, like of course there's a band in the desert because you need music to come in, and whoops, we accidentally got the band in shot, kind of thing, helps to really sell the fact this is a movie about these things.
But all right, to your point though, it's even more than that because it's not accidentally in shot. Bart literally stops and Basie acknowledge each other like, hey man, and then he rides off. Oh, like
yeah, no, that's fair. That's fair.
Oh, I love it. All right, I'll let the Count Basie bit go. I don't know why that makes me the most excited.
It's a great bit. It's a great bit.
Riding in the town, you get the fact they get to use the distance and the band playing to mask the fact that Bart is black, because you have like the lick out trying to shout to them using racist terms that gets overplayed by music.
Yep.
And then there's like the sheriff is near.
Right. And it's funny because like I came into this going, I was frustrated by the overused N word, but now that we're talking it through, I realized it's much more implied than actually used in this movie. Well, I mean, it's used a lot. Don't get me wrong, but like we had we mentioned the very first scene where it's used a lot, and then like we're now in a scene where like it's played over by the music, or Lepetamain walks up to the line of saying it. So it's not that it's always implied. Rather, there's slightly more implication than actual use that I remember it being, even though I just watched it a few days ago.
I'd say that it's Brooks uses it strategically versus Quentin, who tries to drown you in it.
Fair. That's actually a fair point. That's a fair point. So we have these moments where like it's funny. It's funnier to actually not say the word in these moments, which shows to a level of craft and intent that you're right, Tarantino just didn't use, or have, or arguably ever had,
or didn't care. Like,
right,
regardless of the stuff that we may have said about like Mel Brooks' intention, and especially if he cut Richard Pryor out so that he wouldn't overshadow him, Mel Brooks took a more, God, I can't believe I'm going to say this about Blazing Saddles, took a more nuanced look at it to make it work, and brought in a whole bunch of other voices to help him do that.
Right. Like, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think Jim ever says it.
No.
But we do have a great bit, like, because we're in the scene too, like where Jim's upside down for some fucking reason, which is hilarious.
Because the original actor, I think when he got pulled from set, was in that pose when he just, bleh. everything out.
Oh, I see.
And
Okay.
so part of me thinks that if that is true, it's Brooks having to rehabilitate that actor.
That feels very Brooks. Um, but then is the, are we okay? It's like, that depends. Are we black? Is a great line because it's Jim acknowledging the reality of the situation. Again, never denying the fact of Bart's race, but in a different way. And so we're much more sympathetic to Jim because, like, yes, we are. And it's like, then we're okay. It allows you to become more sympathetic to him because he's the first white character to not walk up to or use this word.
Yeah. And like the instant chemistry between those two actors.
Oh
I would
God.
have loved to have seen Wilder and Little in films together. Now,
Yeah.
I know people love Wilder and Richard Pryor. But
Yeah.
that is like over the top comedy that has never really appealed to me because it's too over the top.
Right.
Like I think my favorite film with them is probably going to be Silver Streak, which is funny, but it has a lot of it's undercut the humor to some extent.
And that's one of the things that's weird about Blazing Saddles because, like, up to without having to do a deconstruction of all comedy until this time period, a lot of comedy, particularly Mel Brooks written comedy to this point, was very much just a straight man and a crazy guy, because that was just a common stock trope of comedy. Um, with Wilder and Pryor after this movie, neither of them are a straight person. They're both different levels of wild guy, and that's what makes it funny because it's a whole new style of no, you just have two people just do different, contrasting, bizarre things, right? But in Blazing Saddles, the two actors are shifting who is a straight person depending on the scene. Sometimes Bart is, sometimes Jim is,
And that's
and
amazing.
that's fascinating.
It shows more depth of character. So,
Yeah.
all right. And even when they're befriending each other, sitting there. All right, the chess piece that you're talking about that he does is one of the outrageous things of how ridiculous they're going to make Jim throughout this movie. Like, grab that piece. His hands don't even move. Look at that.
Right. Right, and it's like, and not only is it like we filmed it in a way that he could the way it's shot. There's no plausible way he could have actually moved. Right, it's pure camera joke.
And then we get told Jim's backstory that is pretty tragic if you think about the implications of it. And like I drew on a kid in the end. It's like, ooh, that's when I stopped. Like that is dark. They don't show you specifically and they let it go. And that's when he makes a joke about like he's shaking hand. Then we get Bart's backstory. Eddy.
Yep.
Mel Brooks. Mel Brooks is unfortunately the indigenous people's chief that lets them go, and he is speaking Yiddish.
Yep.
In that scene. Like it's
right. So I can almost see the logic here. It doesn't excuse it at all, right? But I can almost see the logic of natives have to be in Western films, so rather than butcher them, let's just make it a Jewish joke because I'm Jewish. And I'm like, that's not the right way to approach that problem. But I could see the problem you're trying to solve.
The thing is, you've brought in black people to make you feel better about using the N-word, and it's focused on a black story and everything else. There is no reason you couldn't have brought in indigenous peoples, paid them like money, and let them be in this movie that you thought was going to be super successful to build a career and to help other people.
Right. No, see, like, my very mild argument, although I will then undercut it immediately, so don't get too worried. The very mild argument in defense is like, I feel it's another case of Mel Brooks going, this is a very sensitive spot. I'll go ahead and take the heat out. If it goes badly, it's on me. Right. But brownface was not the answer. Because that's what this is. Yep. You could have hired an indigenous actor and still had them say Yiddish, and the joke would work even better, I think.
It would have.
Right.
So
yeah.
The talk though, the reason to talk about Bart's story is that Jim falls asleep during it, and Bart thinks he's telling this epically gripping tale.
Right.
Anything else about this beat before we move on?
For some reason I cannot explain, I really love Wilder describing Bart as an urban sophisticate. This is a little joke where he's like, why would people not want an urban sophisticate like you around? Right. And I think it's because it works on two levels. One, it's very obviously a metaphor, and Bart also immediately understands it's a metaphor.
Yeah.
But also, secondly, he's actually correct based on what we saw earlier in the film.
Because it's a family secret, Eddie.
Right.
On his mother's side.
Yes, which is so good.
In
So I think it helps because like Jim is willing to coach things in metaphor, and Bart's kind of saying it's okay, you don't have to do that for me. But Jim still feels like he should. But it doesn't seem like it's coming from a place of guilt. It's coming from a place of fibbing almost. It's like by using metaphor, talking about his race is a mild form of passive aggressive ribbing, which is just again, it's so hard to explain, but it's such a good moment.
I want to like take a moment though, and I made that joke specifically so we could go back a beat, but he's saying was it like his grandfather, something on his mother's side, whoever. But if you go back, we'll say 1 to 2 generations, that lands historically with Dutch settlers coming over to the US. Eddie, it is a fucking history joke that just gets glossed over.
Yes, that's very true.
I love it. Anything else? Urban Sophisticate, do you want to delve in more or you want to move on?
No, I think we move on to farting. It's fine.
Back with Taggart. We get a round of beans and farts. He dispatches Mongo, an immensely strong and primal henchman who is going to be Webster's adopted father, to kill Bart. The brute is on his bull, storms into town as town folks flee at the sight of him. When in need, they come begging Bart for help. The sheriff subdues Mongo with Wile E. Coyote trickery, causing Hedley to unleash Lily Van Strup, a German seductress for hire, on Bart as his backup plan. As the town secretly comes around to Bart, he responds to Lily's invitation and bonds her up and down. And in case anyone is curious, my last bullet point here, I'm going to say now, in all caps, is magic penis.
It's true.
we talked about it during James Bond, so I feel like we need to talk about it here too.
Nope, works fine. But let's start. I accept that on some level I'm a 12-year-old boy. I still laugh at the farting scene every time. Every time.
I am, I guess, perpetually just an 80-year-old man. I have never laughed at that joke.
Really?
Even as a kid, I didn't laugh.
Funny. I always thought it was funny. Especially because like it's like they start about the fact that they're oh, you want some more beans? Oh no, I'm good. And it's like while the farting is going on, so like it's like almost lost under the sound of the farting. They're talking about the things making them fart, and then a guy comes and tries to have a conversation. They're still farting, and it's just, I don't know, it's funny.
So one of the beats during interviews is that the sound guy came to Brooks and was like, "Are you sure you want me to turn it up?" And Mel Brooks is like, "Yes, because the audience is going to be laughing, and we still need them to hear the farts, so they'll keep laughing." So that is why the farts are so loud.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. And sure enough, he was correct.
I get that people love it. It's never worked for me.
No, totally. And that's what the really thing about comedy, right? Is like there's so many jokes in here. If you don't get every one, wait a few minutes. There'll be one you like.
Mongo punching a horse, that works for me. And so
Mongo punching a horse.
I've heard different things. I don't know which one is true. One of the things I've heard is that it was a stunt horse and it was trained. Another thing I heard is it was like a mechanical horse, which I can't see it being a mechanical horse. That's hard for me to envision mentally for a 70s film.
No, I've heard that it was a stunt horse because I do know that horses were trained to fall over when they were quote unquote shot. And if you watch the scene, it is the same body motion that the horse had been quote unquote shot. It's just the actor is also swinging during that action. So I was always more inclined to think stunt horse. But it is such a funny moment.
Always makes me laugh. And he does go on to become a Webster's dad in the 80s. So anyone is curious about that.
That's so wild to me.
And it's this film, though, that got him in the door to acting and everything else. So it's
really, wow.
He was a football player. This is like
amazing. But like, so because most of Mongo's villain arc is in this chunk, for what it is, I love how just utterly over the top of a villain Mongo is, to of course undercut the fact that he's actually not that all of a bad guy, but like, again, he punches out a horse. He casually breaks ropes. He rides in on a bull as opposed to a horse, right? It's just like ludicrous anime levels of this guy is the evil bad guy, right? It's so funny. And again, having watched more anime, read more manga since then, it's even funnier to me because it's something that those would probably play relatively straight. And he's like, no, he just rides in on a bull. Right? That's just how you do things. It's just like, what is happening with this guy?
And Bart beats him with Looney Tunes is like the only way he
Yes.
actually beats him. So it's
and then the joke of, and I won't even get credit for inventing the Ziggy telegram, was just so barbed. And it's like just a little rib of like, yes, Black inventors often don't get credited for their historical contributions. It's just like,
correct.
It's so good.
So, we know that Mel Brooks throws away history at a whim, but he also incorporates it too. So it's a hard balance. I just keep coming back to that.
Right.
I am curious. Are Taggart and Headley in love, Eddie? They spend a lot of time together, and he helps him in the tub. He does a whole bunch of stuff.
I mean,
is this in fact a love story?
I think so. Certainly, Headley cuddled him when he was scared of the horse being hanged earlier.
I'm just saying.
The
hidden meeting is
the froggy
joke.
Story. Sorry, still good.
Anything else about this?
Let's talk about Lily because we haven't talked about her much.
Oh, that's right. Thank you.
So like, again, we talked about it before, but Madeline Kahn does such a great job of like, they're building up to, she's this dance hall singer, and so she's getting up the legs and she's sexy, and then the song she sings is like, I'm so tired of dudes fucking me. And they're going wild and crazy, and like she stops the song at one point in time to make fun of someone for being like this, and so the whole time she is just telling that I'm sick of all of you all suck, men are terrible, and they're going, yeah, this is awesome because we're not listening to a word you're saying, and it's like, it's such a good line of how men don't listen to women.
Oh, and so Mel Brooks wrote those songs, by the way, that she sings.
I believe it. But what's interesting, and this is a resonance of the joke that I have more recently come on to, is that level of women singing about men being kind of crap is not historically inaccurate. It's a bit later than this. It's more like the early 1900s where it starts to happen. But there were quite a few songs by these kinds of, particularly started from France and moves into England and eventually to America, of women singing about men who've been unfaithful or how they're tired of love and whatnot, and that sends them to a different level of stardom, and sets the whole kind of unattainable woman mystique, right?
Yeah.
But that's not what's happening here, right? This is not actually that. What this is a woman who she's a sex worker. She built her entire life on this. And her only outlet is actually singing, where she's like, I have to have sex with men to propel my career, and that's exhausting because men are exhausting. But by shoving it into the song, you have a different level of joke. And then when Bart uses magical penis on her, then the joke is like, here's a woman who's a man who's actually interested her and excited her. Granted, it is wrapped in a all black men have larger penises joke, which is a whole separate problem. But it's still a great way of showing the short space why she's so sick of Headley and so enamored with Bart. Because Headley is the same old bullshit she's always had to deal with, and Bart is someone new and intriguing in her life.
And the other thing is that I guess we should touch on too is Star Trek got a bunch of Star Trek shared the first interracial kiss on screen and became like a big thing. We're a few years later than Star Trek, but now we're getting to the point of like implied interracial sex on scene because it goes all to black and everything else. Shaft did more of that because Shaft is a black exploitation film. So we get
Right.
that too, but that in itself was monumental. So I
Sure.
want to like focus on a piece of that too. Not too much because it could be too big. But
Right. And again, like it's just Madeline Kahn plays it just as pure comedy, right? It's quote unquote sexy, but not really, right? It's just jokes. And she plays the sex scene exactly the same way she played any other comedic scene. And so again, she's undercutting this sexiness in a way that I always find hysterical.
And even her outfit to let me slip into something more comfortable is ridiculous.
Yes, right. It's like she gets an explicitly less comfortable costume.
Anything else before we move on? All right, my last beat is Bart Batman. All right, are we ready to move on?
Batman.
Upon release, Mongo vaguely informs Bart of Lamar's connection to the railroad. So Bart and Jim visit the railroad worker site and discover that Bart's friend Charlie, the railroad is planning to go through Rock Ridge. Taggart and his men arrive to kill Bart, but Jim outshoots them and forces them to retreat. Furious that his schemes have backfired, Headley has Taggart put out an ad to enlist every sort of stereotypical criminal in the West and beyond. Bart and Jim infiltrate this criminal gang by knocking out some Ku Klux Klan members and disguising themselves as them before their ruse is up.
Okay. So much talk about that last bit, but let's kind of roll back. To Mongo. My wife and I still to this day use Mongo as but pawn in Game of Life as a joke all of the time. Every time something goes wrong in our life, it's like Mongo is just pawn in Game of Life. So that's an inside joke for us because that moment because it's so great because Mongo's very kind of childish, kind of not understanding what's going on. But weirdly, the movie does not undercut Mongo's strength because he got dynamited in a previous scene. And he wakes up, yawns, and casually breaks all the ropes that are tying him down. And it's just like, he's still this relentless badass, but now it's like, I don't want to do it anymore.
But he doesn't break the ropes until Bart tells him he's free to go. Like, that is the whole thing.
Right.
That's, And then he doesn't want to leave because now he's supposed to be Bart's friend. I love it.
Right.
I love it so much.
Right.
There is some unfortunately like gay humor there that is not cool though, like where Mongo's that's so like there are all these great things, there are all these things I love, then it's instantly undercut by some of the other pieces. So I'm in the constant struggle with the film too.
Right. And like I could make the argument that Mongo comes from a group of bigots, and so therefore it's not easy to overthrow that bigoted heritage, and a lot of men, even those who don't see themselves as bigoted, still confuse non-erotic friendship with erotic love between men, and that's a problem. But I agree, it doesn't land well. It's like there's a different way to play that scene, I think, to get that joke. Yeah. But it just comes across as the joke is I'm not a gay man, and it's like it's not great.
Well, easily breaks the chains or whatever, like it's nothing.
Right. But then they find out that the railroad's going through Rock Ridge. Bart and Charlie. It's just a great little scene.
So Jim is our man in black throughout the entire thing, which I'm loving. It's like the riff. I know we talked about it before, but I love it more in this scene where he literally shoots the gun out of like 6 dudes' heads with his fingers, maybe.
Right. Yeah. Because again, we do his arms are crossed, nowhere near his guns. We do see a bit of movement this time, so it's not just his arms crossed. Which again is like you can just tell Gene Wilder's going, I have to sell this a tiny bit, right? But it's still like there's no way he could have possibly done that so fast. But we're still in it's like the first time it was just it's plausible, but the camera undercuts the plausibility. This time we're getting to it's unlikely. It's not utterly impossible, but it's pretty unlikely that he could have done it that way. So like it's like the Jim's legend is now becoming ludicrous, but we haven't gone full gonzo yet.
Wow. And so one of the initial meetings with the town folks, where they before they go off to learn about like the criminal gangs, is Bart drops a line that they would do it for Randolph Scott. This is another thing about it's a movie about a Western movie in a movie,
Right.
essentially.
Right. And like for a long time I didn't get that joke. Because I've been inadvertently picking up bits and pieces of the course of this run, like, oh, Randolph Scott's a very famous Western guy. But then I realized there's the double joke of like, A, you do it for Randolph Scott, i.e., an established Western actor, right? B,
White
I realized
established Western actor.
Well, right. I was getting to that. But B was, as a course of learning this, like, Mel Brooks could not get an established Western actor to do this. So it's like, you would do it for somebody if Mel Brooks could have cast better, right? But C, yes, you would do it for a white lead, but I'm a black lead. So yeah, there's a lot of that one bit actually has a number of different layers, which is fantastic. And of course, the music of Randolph Scott, like everyone praying, it's so good.
Oh, I'm trying to remember from Rocky now. I can't remember even if Rocky Horror makes a joke about Randolph Scott too, but I think it does.
I think you're confusing with Dr. Scott.
No, like in the opening theme, they make.
Oh,
but I don't think it's Randolph Scott. I think it's a guy that did weightlifting. Is who they Charles Atlas.
Charles Atlas, yes.
Damn it. Okay.
But then the KKK joke, right?
I'm always up for punching a Klan member, Eddy. There's just something cathartic about it.
So I mentioned earlier in the podcast that the overall kind of structure is just a bunch of skits kind of stuck together of the vague thought through. This is one of the jokes that actually is plot relevant in that the KKK members are only of the villains that actually are wearing masks. So there's a logical plot reason why they would have attacked them. But then, of course, Bart reaches out with his hands and it's like, but of all the people you could have picked, that's the worst one you could have picked in that regard. So like it's a joke that works on a couple levels because like if you play that scene back, it's like, yeah, there's nobody else that could have done. Also, side note, is this the origin of the "we don't need no stinking badges" joke?
The joke version, yes, but I think it comes from the Treasure of Humphrey Bogart movie, Treasure of the Sierra Madre. The name's not pronounced correctly.
Okay,
I think
thought it was
the dramatic version is from that.
Okay,
the dramatic version from that. The joke is from here.
Okay, because when I saw it, I was like, again, it's another one that we used for a long time, although we stopped doing it in the accent. And I was like, no, it's got to be a reference. I think the joke is it's a reference to something, but I was like, is this the first joke version of it, or is this the first version of it? And it just people were referring out this and that. It's like I felt like it was a reference to something, so I'm glad I was right. But I'm also right. This is the first reference of it as a joke because then it becomes a very common joke.
Yeah,
to the point where the joke. There are now references that we don't need stinking badgers. We don't, like whatever. There are now spins off of the joke version of the reference, which is a weird Ouroboros of humor.
East of Rockridge, Bart introduces the white townspeople to the black Chinese and Irish railroad workers who've all agreed to help them in exchange for acceptance by the community, and explains his plan to defeat Headley's army. They labor all night to build a perfect copy of the town as a diversion. And Bart realizes it will not be enough to fool the villains because they didn't construct any copies of themselves. Bart, Jim, and Mongo buy time by constructing a fake toll booth in the Raiders Pass, forcing them to spend an exorbitant amount of time paying the fee individually.
This is obviously the most Looney Tunes of the entire movie. Like ridiculously silly. Quick side note. Do we need to go into the myth of Irish racism in the West, or do we just kind of skip that, or what?
I was going to skip it, but you brought it up, so go ahead.
Okay. So how could this? White supremacists recently have tried to argue that Irish people had a racism done to them, and that therefore it's okay to do a racism to other people now, which is, as an argument, utterly baffling. but also it's completely inaccurate in the sense that, yes, there was a lot of bigotry against the Irish. It was not racism, because that's not how that works. It is still bigotry, but it was more religious than cultural. And so a lot of the Irish stereotypes we have now, like the Irish policeman, the Irish union worker, whatnot, came because they had to find places in society where either A, they would be accepted, or B, had power to get people to be less bigoted against them. But again, primarily because of their faith, um, in a different way than Jewish people were, because that is racism for very complicated reasons. So yes, Irish people, there were signs that said Irish people could not be allowed to stay in certain places. There were certain places that Irish people were not to hold office and were not to live. So to say the bigotry against Irish people didn't exist is flawed, but to equate it to the racism of people of color is ludicrous and stupid.
Correct.
Now,
Um,
the reason why I
additional
think this joke
caveat
is
to
weirdly
that.
aged, I'll say the reason why I think this joke is aged particularly well is because we had a context in mind. This joke actually is really funny because it's the well, yeah, but at least not the Irish, right? It's the because white people using that as an excuse to be bigoted is itself kind of funny. Um, but you have to know a lot of that context to understand why I think it's particularly funny.
And an additional caveat to that I go into more depth in Haunted West is if people would talk about white people being enslaved, white people weren't enslaved, white people were indentured servants,
Yep.
which usually meant they agreed to give X number of years of service for like a very low pay to come over to the US. And then after such time, they would usually be like full citizens to go do whatever they wanted to. What that also means is like their family members are not stripped from them and sold off and an array of other things versus enslavement, which they would sell people's family members. They weren't considered human and so forth and so on. If you want more information, go by Haunted West. It goes in great
Right.
detail.
The short version is that people of color were basically used as property, whereas the Irish were refugees. They fled because of the Irish famine, which came about as a result of the British, which is a whole separate rant.
Yeah. There you go.
You know,
Anything else about this piece?
so they build a whole town, and again, like we're now moving into this. Just no, right? Like, this just doesn't even remotely plausible because, and the reason why I think his joke works is like Bart just almost makes it barely plausible. Like we got everybody in town working together. We have all the railroad workers. We'll work all night and we'll build a copy of the town. And then they build copies of themselves in an hour. And say, okay, now this is just impossible.
It takes more than an hour for those raiders. It takes like 2 hours, Eddie.
Right. But the movie has been steadily moving into increasingly ludicrous territory. And it's around this scene where every time I watch it, I start to realize, oh no, this movie is just not even bothering to make sense anymore. And then again, it's going to keep going even further after this. But again, like they functionally build a movie set,
yeah,
to kind of really reinforce this is a comedy about Western movies specifically.
And the other half of that joke is like that's what our heroes are doing. Our villains have Headley giving a speech to people and then specifically mentions that he will not get an Academy Award for his role in this, even more cementing that this is a movie about Western movies. So like right there built up, which is funny because he did not receive a nomination for the Academy Award. Blazing Saddles received 3 nominations, one of which went to Madeline Kahn.
Excellent.
Well, didn't win, but was nominated.
Sure.
Sometimes it's just good to be nominated. All right. Went to the booth. The Raiders attack the fake town and its population of dummies, which have been booby-trapped with dynamite. Unfortunately, they don't explode, so Jim, with a pistol from 1 billion miles away, must shoot it to explode it. Bam! Unfucking believable. The resulting brawl between town people, railroad workers, and the stereotype of criminals literally breaks the fourth wall and bursts onto a neighboring movie set where director Buddy Bizarre is filming a an over-the-top style musical number. The melee then extends to the studio commissary for a food fight and spills out onto the Warner Brothers filming lot onto the street of Burbank. And I'm stopping there and saving the last beat of the movie for the final conclusion.
Yes, right. So like, yeah, right. We've now moved to Jim is just making shit up, right? This is we've now moved into, as long as I have a gun in my hand and the thing I could shoot at is a thing that could possibly be hurt by bullets, therefore I can do it.
And he takes aim like it's a rifle with a pistol.
I know. It's Wilder's so good because like he's not. Wilder has his reputation, deserved, of playing these very kind of eccentric characters, right? And Jim's not that. And so what Wilder does fantastically with this character is that he just lets it peek out around the edges, and it's always around Jim's gunslinging. So like when Jim is not being a gunslinger, he's a pretty straightforward character. But when he's a gunslinger is when he gets kind of weird, right? And so it's Wilder's like, yeah, again, perfectly normal. Then like holds a gun like no human being would ever hold a gun. You know, it's amazing.
Oh god. And I'm taking a beat to talk about that woman and her right hook where she punches like one of the guys through the building. Like she rears back, power punches. I loved it. Like
that was the old woman too, wasn't it?
I don't know if it was the old woman. It should be because they didn't show us the front. So in my mind's eye, I think it's a stunt man dressed as a woman.
Right, but I think she's wearing the same bonnet as the older woman who said "up yours" to Bart back in the beginning of the film. So I think that was the gag. Was like she's actually a really strong woman. But I don't know. Either way, it works.
So I loved it, and of course they're fucking Nazis in the movie because
right. Because they were one of the villains that they were hiring. Which led to a joke that I almost said earlier, which was that they pan over to see Nazis and then pan over to see Ku Klux Klan. And I was like, that was redundant. You didn't need to do that twice.
Well, especially not these days.
Right.
Then the fact that the movie finally just says fuck it.
Right.
We're not really a Western at all. Here's proof that we've never been a Western from the jump. Let's just be on the movie set.
Right. It does lead to an unfortunate string of gay jokes. Right.
Yes, it does.
But me personally, I kind of like am half okay with it just because it's also simultaneously a parody of Mel Brooks and his directing style.
Yeah.
So like it's Mel Brooks making fun of himself. And the top hat and tails number is pretty accurate to that slightly older, like it would be contemporaries to a lot of Western films. So like again, like there's a lot of history and knowledge behind this gag, but also the actual song is about gay men having sex, and it's led by a very effeminately gay director. So it's like that's not great.
Played by Dom DeLuise, in case anyone's curious who that was.
Right, which was surprised. Every time he comes out, I was like, oh wait, that's Dom DeLuise. Oh, that's right, he was in a lot of these films.
All right, let's wrap this up. Headley escapes a brawl and hails a taxi, instructing the cabbie to drive me off this picture. He hides at Mann's Chinese Theater, which is showing the premiere of Blazing Saddles. As he settles into a seat, he sees on screen Bart arriving on horseback outside the theater. Bart blocks Lamar's escape, and Lamar convinces him that he doesn't have a weapon. Bart drops his gun, and before they can duke it out, Headley pulls out a gun, but Bart drops and shoots him in the groin, only to have Headley pause and talk about Douglas Fairbanks' size of his feet. Then Bart and Jim enter the theater to watch the end of the film. Back in the film, Bart announces to the town people that he's moving on because his work here is done. And they don't believe him, so he admits, all right, this town's pretty boring now. Riding out of town, he finds Jim still eating his popcorn and invites him along to Nowhere Special. The two friends briefly ride into the desert and the sunset before dismounting and boarding a limousine, which completely drives off into the sunset.
Okay, so I love talking about deconstruction. This is literally that, right? Like the movie is not only implicitly be deconstructed at the end, but then officially it starts watching itself, right? It's like it's just nonsense.
Oh, but it's so awesome. Oh, all right. The fact that he runs out and hails a taxi to go see the movie that he's already in.
Right. So,
Oh,
okay, let's break this down a bit because it's not just as simple as they break out of the movie and they start running around, right? It's okay. So step one, they break out of the movie set into another movie set. So the movie, the people ostensibly who are do not realize they're in a movie are now realizing they're in a movie.
yes.
Then step two, Hedy Lamarr explicitly leaves the film, right?
Yes.
Like takes a taxi out of the film that he's currently in. Step
Demanding to be
three, then
taken
go
out
back.
of the picture. Like,
Right, out of the picture, right. And then of course this joke of actually literally drive out of shot. So it's another funny comedy movie joke. Then they go back to watch the movie that is still being made. That we're also watching. Go back to watch that. So and you think, and each time it's like, okay, this is the end of the joke. No, but then we have the very end where, okay, let's go watch the end of the movie. So they watch the end of the movie that they're in, and then right, the popcorn that Bart is eating while watching the movie is now in the movie. So now there's just no line. So like they have escaped the movie, and then by the act of watching the movie, they now have melded the two frames back together again somehow. And then they leave in a limousine because fuck continuity, right? And it's wonderful. It's so good because it's so fast. It's like, blah, 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 blah. Like every time you think you know what's happening, something new comes along because it's just hysterical.
even hearing you recap it, it's fucking hilarious.
It is.
All right, Eddie. What are your final thoughts on Blazing Saddles?
Raisinets are terrible. No one should like Raisinets.
Right? Agreed, 100%. Like the worst candy you could get.
So just why? It's just chocolate covered crap. But no, obviously this is a movie I really enjoy. In fact, a lot of Mel Brooks's 70s and 80s oeuvre is just some of my favorite just comedy films in general. Young Frankenstein, this, History of the World Part 1, Spaceballs. And like I said,
what about the silent movie?
I've actually never watched that. That's the isn't that the no, that's not the Hitchcock parody. That's another
that's
one.
High Anxiety.
High Anxiety, right? I think I've seen High Anxiety. I don't think I've seen the silent movie actually. This movie is uncomfortable at times, and what makes you uncomfortable and why it makes you uncomfortable has kind of shifted since the 70s. But I think the core tension works, which is people are uncomfortable seeing black characters in these roles in westerns, and let's mine that for humor. Works just as well as now as it did in 74.
Yes.
Which is unfortunate, but it's true.
Someone so that people even hate people then and are uncomfortable that when people make books about historically accurate things in the West.
Right. Luckily, you don't have to worry about that.
Because I already made that book.
Right.
I think it goes without saying that I love this movie. I have problems with it, but I still love it because this is the most known that Cleavon Little is going to be film-wise. Like this was like the pinnacle of where he got to. I don't know why, because he's exceptional, like charismatic, attractive, brilliant, funny, and just sort of vanished. I know he popped up in some other movies, but like this is the peak of it. And I would have loved to have seen more of him out there acting and doing things. And it takes all of that, and it takes my love of Gene Wilder too, and puts him into one film. And this is like Mel Brooks almost at the top of his game with like an exceptional writing crew addressing a topic that I care deeply about.
Yeah.
It's not done 100%, but nothing ever will be. And given the fact it was made, like 50, 60 years ago, unfucking believable that it still hits and resonates today as well as it does.
Right. Yes. Like, I think we both said, like, Mel Brooks, some of his jokes don't work. Like, he's not afraid of offending people, and sometimes that works to his detriment. But it is telling that a lot of those jokes that aged badly are topics he doesn't go back to, you know? And so he doesn't make maybe overcomplicate things a bit, but like I've always felt that Mel Brooks doesn't make the offensive jokes to be offensive, which a lot of comedians nowadays in particular do. Rather, he does them to make a point. And if he doesn't make the point, he doesn't walk up to that line. So that way the offense and the humor blend better. I mean, going back to producers for a moment, like a lot of the joke is about how Hollywood glorifies Nazi propaganda. And so you have to kind of get really it has to be a pretty straightforward comedy until you get to that, and then it has to just blow out of the water, and it does. Um, so same with Blazing Saddles is like now that we've talked it through, I'm a lot more I won't say comfortable, but a lot more confident about the use of the N word because it does come across as more strategic in retrospect. And you're right, you do need to establish the uphill battle that Bart faces to make his jokes even funnier.
Yeah.
So it's cool. It's cool that everyone on the set seems to be aligned with that. I could certainly see why there's probably a lot of uncomfortable conversations during the making of that movie.
Yeah.
But I'm glad it exists. And so let's go back to a question you said you were at a table for this chunk. Can this movie be made today?
Are you wanting me to answer first? Is that what your pause is?
Yes, I do. I mean, I already have an answer. I think we're going to be in alignment, but I'm just curious what your thoughts are.
Because that's why you took my question.
Yes.
I think this movie could be made today with the right director.
I mean, that's basically all I'll say too. Like I mean, I joked about it, but I'm also not kind of serious. Like a Ryan Coogler version of this script would be actually pretty great, you know.
But it would come down to being the right director, and you need the right people to make it. And regardless of when you made it, some people are going to be offended by it. But I think it could be executed and be a smashing success.
Right. And I had said earlier that this kind of fast-paced ensemble skit style comedy movie isn't really popular anymore. But I realized as we were recording that the Police Squad movies have been remade recently with Liam Neeson as the lead, and apparently they did reasonably well. So
right.
I did say it was great, but like the point is maybe this style of comedic movie, maybe it might be coming back. I don't know.
Definitely may change. What are we doing next time, Eddie? Like, so I had us do Blazing Saddles. We're firmly entrenched in 1974. What other 70s film are we about to get into?
So about that, we're gonna jump ahead 6 years because screw the 70s. And we're gonna go 1980. And Heaven's Gate, apparently. It has.
I'm sorry, am I laughing?
It has Chris Christopherson and Christopher Walken, apparently. John Hurt. So yeah, you could tell I've never heard of this movie before, so it'll be fun.
Eddie, it's going to be a little bit of a long movie, so I just want you to be prepared.
2.5 hours. I've already seen. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
If people want to support you for constantly doing this thing with me, that I torment you and laugh at your expense at, where can they do that?
Oh God, send alcohol desperately. But otherwise, you can come to pugsteady.com. That's my website. That's also where you can find me on Blue Sky. Or you can check out my silly dog game, Rums of Pugmire, at rumsofpugmire.com. Or you can find me on the Darker Hue Discord, where I post about stuff.
If you're looking to support me, you can come to, just go to my Patreon at Harlem Unbounding. I'm working on Dead City Blues right now. It's like my magic noir sort of thingy-mabob that I'm slowly assembling. Otherwise, we just appreciate you listening.
All right. We'll see you next time.